Hello everyone, it's Amy and welcome back for another journaling on a budget starting from scratch. Today we are going to make paper dolls because I was asked by someone if I could show how to make them. She said that she just never got the hang of it, and I have always had a problem with these too. As a matter of fact, even when I was just making some, I cut them in half. But I thought, well, that would be fun. And then, so I thought I was going to do it on the Build Your Stash series. And then I got to thinking of some different ideas about it where we can use it in our journal. And I think that it would be cool. So we're going to do it on this series. So the first thing we are going to do is make a paper doll. The thing about making a paper doll, what you're going to do is you're going to fold your paper accordion style, as many folds as you can get, taking your paper and folding it back and forth until you get to the end of your paper. Now you want to make sure that you line up your edges as best as you can, and once you get it folded, do not trim the edges at all. Now this one I have folded, and my paper doll is going to be this big, so I am going to cut this one right here above my paper doll, because then I have another one that I can use to make here. And if you have longer paper, like I have for this series, I had bought some that was called banner paper, and they just continue to fold out. And so I could actually do a really, really long one if I wanted to, or you could even take pieces of paper together so that you can have a really long one. For our journal, we're not necessarily going to want to have something really super long, so we're just going to use, I was able to fold 4 pieces in one, and sometimes 5. But so what I did was, part of my really hard problem is just trying to cut out a paper doll just from scratch. I can't do that. She's so lopsided. No matter how hard I try, I have a problem. So what I did was, I just took a piece of paper. There was a leftover bit of paper on this, and so I took what was left over and I folded it in half. And then what I did was I just gave her a skirt and arms and a neck and a head. And I will tell you, I probably had to trim this head back. First, she had a big point in her head. Or actually, I should say a big dent in her head. Then she had a big point on her head. And her head was way too big, because it was almost as big as her whole body. So I just kept trimming it down, but not opened up, folded in half. I would fold it in half, and then I would open it up and say, oh, she's got a big point on her head. Okay, I'll cut that off. Oh, she's got a dip in her head. Okay, I'll even that out. And just kept doing that until I got what I thought was the right size head, with a little dress and a cup and some shoulders and a neck. Now my arms weren't long enough because this piece of paper was smaller, but all I did was I just held her in the middle and drew around her. When I got to the arms, I just extended them all the way out to the edges of the paper. And then for her legs, because I wanted them to be kind of even, I just cut a point in that same folded piece of paper. I cut a point so that I could, basically get an angle on the legs, and I just drew down and put a couple of feet on there, and then I just took that off and I drew up so that she had legs. So that is how I drew my paper doll. Now on this one, I made her feet come out to the edge, so her feet will be connected. You don't have to do that. The only place they really need to be connected is at the arms, like they're all holding hands. So, but I thought, well, maybe it would be sturdier if I left the feet connected. So I'm not going to cut around this like this, because if I do, I'm going to cut off the folded parts of the paper, and that's going to disconnect my little doll. So I'm going to start at the edge of the paper, but not the bottom, and I'm just going to cut around her little shoe here. And then we're just going to cut around her and see if we actually have paper dolls or not. And I'm hoping this is the type of paper doll that you were talking about, and I do forget who asked. I am terrible with names. I am really bad with names. Even if you've been around a long time, if I don't remember your name, please do not feel offended. I remember your pictures, but I'm just terrible with names. And so I really do apologize about that, but I have been that way all of my life. So we're just going to continue cutting, and when I cut her arm, if you'll notice, I just cut straight off the edge and then came back straight in again. Don't cut anything on that side. But the second that she said, like, have I ever done paper dolls in any of my series, and she has a hard time with them, this was the first kind of paper doll I thought about, because I've always had a problem with them too. And my problem is either I cut them off where they don't attach, or they're so lopsided that it's just not funny. So again, just right off the edge of the paper, and then come back in from here, making sure that we don't disconnect those sides. And then also, because we've decided to have the feet attached, we need to make sure that we don't round off that shoe at the bottom on that edge. So we are almost there. Okay, so here's her shoe. I'm just going to round it out to the edge. Give it just a little bit of a round here at the end, but not cutting that off. And then we're just going to cut out her legs right up to her dress. There. And here. And then cut across the bottom of the dress, and we are done. Okay, so here's the reveal. Did it work? Find your single piece of paper this side, and as we open it up, ta-da! We have paper dolls. And not only do we have paper dolls, but they're all connected together. So these are really fun, and they would be fun to put in a kid's journal, and they could decorate them up however they wanted. And what I would do is maybe decorate the front one and then leave it so that when they opened it up, they could do one whole side plus the other three, you know, there, and I would just stick those in a pocket, and that would be really cute. But I got to thinking about it after I did this, and I thought it'd be really neat to make something to put in our journals, you know, that's like the paper dolls. And so, you know, I have one here, and I would need a piece of paper. I really personally, I have to say that I have a hard time making things double-sided that are, or, you know, I have a hard time drawing things where both sides look decent. You know, my biggest thing is I'm going to make this paper just a touch bigger. The piece that I'm folding now is just a little bit bigger than my folds here, because then the pattern that I cut will hopefully be big enough to cover what I have there. I'll need to remember I need to go all the way out to the edges of this in order to make it big enough to cover this whole thing. So let's just do a heart. I'm going to fold it in half so that I have... Okay, now we're not going to cut. And I'm going to go all the way out towards the edge. And then I'll look and see if I like the looks of it. And I think I need to like round this top just a little bit more. You can see how it's kind of choppy there at the top, or you know, it's kind of got points because I chopped as I was going around that corner. So the smoother you can make your scissor cut, the better off your cuts look. There we go. And that looks better. Now, is it as wide? See, it's a little tiny bit, and it's very hard to see, but it's just a touch wider than my paper here with my folds, and that's what we need because we need to leave part of it connected. So we'll see how this looks. I don't know how it's going to look because I haven't done a heart, but we're going to find out. I'm going to grab a pencil here, put my glasses on so maybe I can see, since this is a white piece of paper on a white piece of paper. Not the best for a video, huh? I'm going to go just like that right off the edge, and just like that right off the edge. And I probably should have looked to see that it was a little more centered. Well, it looks pretty good. All right, now here comes the moment of truth. Is it going to work? And if it works, is it going to look good? But we could do this with any shape. I'm going to cut there. Don't go around. because we don't want to cut any of those folds. And again, remember, these are not all real even. See how they're staggered a little bit? Don't cut them even, because if you do, you're going to cut that fold off, which is what has to hold them together. And I'm saying that because I've already done it. And I think that that was always my biggest problem a long time ago, was kind of cutting those edges. Alrighty, now how does that look? I'm going to round this a little bit more, like that. But I have to make sure that I've still got enough connection here. And this side I don't like at all, so I'm just going to remember not to cut it off, but give it a little bit more roundness right where it comes to the edge there. So now it does look more like a heart when it's folded up, and when we unfold it, we've got paper doll hearts. Now, once it's open, when it's open, then the end ones, you can round them up a little bit like that. But don't do it while it's closed. And it still looks good. So there we go. So we have hearts. We could do tickets. And my favorite one that I've just done, I also had some that I just tried on, line paper, just so that I could have some samples. Now I've already cut the shape of this edge, which it still looks okay where they're hooked together, but it makes these last ones a little bit rounded. And so that's a leaf. And then my favorite one that I did, and this one we're going to put in our book, and I'll show you how to do it, but we're not going to do the whole thing because it takes a little while, but a feather. And isn't that really cool? And wouldn't that look really cool in our book? Tuck that in a pocket, decorate up the front one, leave all of the rest of them for journaling space. And I really love that idea. So we're just going to take one of our papers, and we are just going to fold it. Accordion fold it. This might only get me 3. And again, this is the most important part, is to try and get it as close as you can when you're folding it, so that it will look a little nicer if you get those folds pretty close. Now, we've got this little piece right here. I'm going to fold that even with the rest. And then even if you're being careful, do not open that up and cut it off like this. Because if you cut this fold, I cut one in half by doing that. Because I cut like a fold that was sticking out in the middle. So when I cut, I just like, it was like this. And I came in and I cut it along the edge. And I cut the middle fold and the whole thing fell apart right in the middle. So it was a smaller one that I had. So I had like 5 or 6 little paper dolls, and I cut them off. So we're just going to cut that off by opening it up to make sure that we don't. And then just draw a feather. Or even you can just cut a feather. I'm just going to, on this one, I'm just going to cut a feather because feathers don't have to be the same on each side, so I don't need to fold it. And we'll hope that I do okay. Okay, so first thing is, come out to the edge, give it a little bit of a roundness here, and then we're just going to pretend that that went out and around and came up to here. And then feathers kind of had a little bit of a swoop to them. So I'm going to go out like that and just cut that off to get it out of my way. And then come in like this. Get a little around there, so we want to leave a gap there. You know, leave a space of where it's folded. And then just come down and kind of meet up with the bottom and put the little bottom part out. Now we have a feather. And I think they're really cool. But I really liked it with the little snippets in it. So if you want to do that, you're just going to start at the top and just cut out little triangles. And you're going to do that all the way down. Now, because you want to leave it with a little bit of a writing space, we're only going to put the triangles out towards the edge. At the top of, you know, they're obviously going to go very close. And when you're cutting the other side, I turn it over so it's easier for me. But make sure that when you cut, if these lines, even though you have this little triangle here, if you went like past the tip of that triangle when you cut, watch for that line, because your next one, you want to make sure when you do this side that you don't touch that cut line there, or it will cut the whole tip off of your feather. And normally when I do feathers that I cut this way, I normally cut the top first, both sides, because that way if I accidentally cut the tip off the feather, I haven't like done all of this work to cut a feather and then I cut the tip off and it's no good. So I normally go at the top on both sides to make sure that I don't ruin the top, because the rest of it's not that hard. It's just time consuming. So just little tiny nippets all the way around. Like that. And we'll just keep going on this one until we get to the fold, so I can show you the fold and show you what it looks like half done. And you can just do leaves this way. Then you don't even have to cut out the little feathery bits. It can just be a leaf, and on the front one you can just draw the center on there, color it, and then just use it as a leaf, because they kind of have the same type shape. Now, I'm kind of like going up in an upward angle, and really these should keep facing downwards. So I'm going to kind of try and get them back on track. That's just like feathers usually go like that until you get to the bottom. Okay, so here is our fold. So the thing with our fold is we need to make sure that we leave enough space. So I'm going to go in, there's a bit of fold right there, and cut that one off, and then leave a bit of a space and go in and cut one off, leave a bit of a space and go in and cut that one off. And actually, I've left all of these flat, and that is not the way that I meant to do it. I meant for them to all have little points on them like feathers do. But on the center, they are going to have a big flat space. So I'm just going to go in and cut that off until I get to the bottom of where it's folded. I was thinking I did something different in the middle, and I'm not doing anything different now. What am I doing? That's what I did different. Was normally these ones were give it a point and then cut some out. Leave that one with a point and cut some out. And because they should have a point on them because they're feathers. And so you just, where you've just cut that one off, you just start at that point and go down and then just come over. Start at that little point, go down and come over. Like that. And when you get to the very bottom, usually with feathers, they start to kind of point down. I'll do this one. Oops. And so with this one, I kind of came up so that I could start at the point but still go up, so that we have a few of them down here at the bottom. that point in a downward manner. Like that. So, so this is our fold here. That's a fold there. Let's see where the fold stops. Okay, that's the last fold. So these ones here, let's see, they should have points on them. Yes, they should have points on them. So I can just go through and cut them so that they have a point. Now they're a little bigger than I would normally like. I usually do them smaller like down here. But because of the way I cut them, they're going to be a little bigger, and that's okay. And if you want to leave them, you know, like if you want to make them all wide, you can do that. You know, if you want to make them the way I made them to start with, you can do that. Because it's your project, so you can do it any way that you would like to. Now I need to be very careful watching what I've got going on up here. So there we go. There's the start of our feather. We would do the exact same thing on the other side, and then when we unfold it, because we did cut them flat in the center, they're attached very nicely. And once we do the other side, it'll look like this. So there we go. We now have a feather. I'm going to very carefully cut those off of there. So then once you cut down, you'll wind up with a little point sticking up there. So you're just going to start at that point, go down, and then come over. And start at that point and go down. And you want to go in a downward angle because you want them to you want the point to face up. And then just remember that when you get to here, you can't cut that little tiny point at the end because it will not hold together then. You want something that's nice and solid like this. And it really does not look bad. You know, I mean, you can see that that's flatter than the rest of it. And like I said, so the way I did this to start with, you could do the whole thing that way. Then they would all kind of look the same. But when you open it up, and again, this needs to be finished, but let's look at this one. Because these are all pointy and these are all flat. But when you open it up, they still look like feathers. And that little flat part does not distract from it or do anything, you know, to distract from it. So I think that these are just great. And I think what I'm going to do is decide what page I want to put this on. And then I will probably just watercolor this very first feather, the way that we watercolor them with plastic. And I will show them to you. I'll show you where I put it the next time that I come back. Or maybe maybe I'll be back in just a minute and we'll find a page and we'll watercolor it and we will put it in our book. We're going to do this one, or maybe I'll finish this one. I'll finish this one and then we'll decide. I'll be back in just a minute. Okay, I'm back and I found the page that I want to put it on. I thought we had this folding pocket that we're going to glue in here. And I hadn't done it because I didn't know, you know, like if we wanted to do something with the background. Well, we're going to use this and we're going to tuck this into the pocket. And this takes up so much space that other than maybe a little background stamping or stenciling, I don't think I'm going to do anything to the background. So we can actually glue that in there right away. And you can either put these in your book, you know, you can tuck them in, you know, no matter which ones you use, or you can glue them down to just glue them right down on your page, and then they would be made to open up. Now, this one, if I were to glue the bottom one down to the page, it would open like this, which would probably not be the best way to open it. So I would glue it this way, and then that way, if I glued that one down to the paper, then when it opened up, it would open up like this off the book, and you know where it would make it easier to write on. So but you can just glue them down like that and make them so they open, or you can tuck them into a pocket. And I thought this would be cute tucked into this pocket right here. So that's what we're going to do. And because I had already kind of drawn on this, this is the side we're going to color. I did go ahead and make this a little pointier because it was kind of flared out like a leaf would be. And so I did that. Here's the one that we did together. I like this one better because it's kind of taller, got a little more swoop, so I'm going to use that one. But this is the one we were working on just a few minutes ago, and it did turn out nice. So there's that one. And I did some testing as to how did I want to color this before I started. So I'm going to give it a center and then just use a little bit of the marker, water marker. And then I am also going to use the plastic and watercolor it that way also. But I thought that I would do this part first and then watercolor it. So I'm going to move the book out of the way. And then what I've got here is I'm going to just take my marker, and the only part that I want to color is just this very first part. The rest of it I want to leave white for writing. So I'm going to kind of just open that up and take that out of the way. And I'm just going to kind of sketch a little bit here because this is quite dark. And then just kind of put the center in my flower. Put the center in my feather like that. And then because I didn't want it all super dark like that, I'm going to just use a little bit of water and marker. I'm going to put one drip of water on here. Hopefully one drip. This is just a hairspray bottle, but it's not working the best. Oops, see, that's lots of drips. Let's get that off of there, some of that. I'm just going to take some of the water off and then put that drip over there. All right, and I just have the little paintbrush that came with our other little paints. And this is a very, very hard paintbrush. So I'm going to take a piece of paper and set it over top of here because I don't want to get a bunch of stuff on the other bits. And I just kind of want to do this like fast. Just kind of go from that center point out. And then I want to do the same thing. Oops, sorry about that. Do it over here too. Oops. I don't even know if I showed you this. This is just the drop of water with the marker just to lighten things up a bit. And I'm just going like in the direction that the feathers, you know, if you took a feather and you pulled it up like that to straighten it out, this is the way the little hairs would go. Let's get some up there on the tip. And I'm going to put some down here because it might just kind of tone that back a little bit. I'm going to make it more solid down there. There. Okay, so that part's done. Now I still do want to try the watercolor, so I'm going to set this aside for just a second. And get some purple on there. And I want to put some blue with it too. Give it a little spray of water. The spray was good, the extra drip is not. That's too much water, especially since that's just regular, like copy paper. Just kind of, we're just mixing that together. Open it up and see what it looks like. I don't like this really, really dark spot here. I'm going to kind of, I have so much bag here, it's not working really well. Usually I just have one thickness of plastic, and then you can kind of see what you're doing. and it moves around a little better. So I'm going to give myself one little piece of plastic, get rid of that whole bag. And you can use any plastic that you have to do this. I was just really wanting to pull right where the fold is. Okay, there we go. That's good. Now I'm going to carefully, as carefully as I can, maybe I'll just do it like this. I won't close. Usually I put it in and close the bag to the other side. But I think what we need to do is just do it like this, because I don't want it to get all over the rest. And even if I try and hold that out, I'm afraid that it will get all over it. Do want to get out to the ends. Be careful because your paper's getting wet, so you don't want to rip where your fold is. There. And I do like the way that that looks. And we don't need to do the other side. We could put a little bit on the other side. What we have left, we could just kind of maybe pick that up. A little bit more right there. There we go. Okay, so now we have our feather. And I'm going to grab the glue. We're going to glue this in here. And what we can do is, we do still have a little bit of color here. Not a lot, and I wouldn't want a lot. So I think what I'm going to do is try and give this another, just a quick mist. What did I do? Oh, here it is. Go. Just to bring that color back to life. And then I'm going to take the page that we're putting this on. I'm going to cover the other page up next to it. Just give this a quick bit of background color. There we go. And I think that looks pretty cool, and we didn't waste the color that we had on our plastic. So now we're just going to glue down our extra fold out corner. And so that one, we're going to glue it down like a pocket, and then it opens up like that, so you have lots of space there to put things. We have to remember that it's just a pocket. Don't glue it shut, or otherwise we wouldn't be able to fit our feather in there. Sometimes when I put on these corner things, I accidentally put glue all over the whole thing. And that doesn't matter. Then that just makes it a corner writing spot instead of a quarter writing spot and a tuck spot. So if you do that, don't ever think it's a big deal. No big deal. There we go. So there's our corner. And then here is our feather writing space. That also could be, you know, used to doodle on the feathers. Make some doodle feathers. Those are really kind of cool. You put your line up the middle and then you doodle however you want to all over it. But that's going to tuck in there. I don't want to leave it in there, you know, because of the glue being wet. But that's going to tuck in there like that. And I do like the way that that looks. I think that looks pretty cool. Probably, maybe, oh, yep, see, I stuck that down into the glue. Good thing I took it out. We'll have that in there, and maybe I'll think of something that I might want in this area, because I think I might want something up there. But for now, I think that this turned out pretty good. I like the way these are, and, you know, you've got your little paper dolls that you can make and they don't have to be for kids' journals. They're fun. And you can make them like that. You can make them like hearts. You can make what I call Bubby dolls. And actually this is the one that I cut off because I was cutting off the edge of the paper, and I actually cut two more of the little dolls off when I did that, because it was all folded up like this. And there was a part, the extra little folded paper was sticking out, and I thought, I'm just going to cut that off. And it wasn't, it was just, I hadn't cut it off before I started, so there was just a little bit right here that was folded over. When I went to cut it off, I cut them in half. So watch your folds, remember your folds, and that's really the biggest part of paper dolls, is making sure those folds are in place. So I think that's pretty much what I did. These ones are leaves. And yeah, so I hope that if you play with these, you have fun. And like I said, they'd even be fun to just glue a part down to your book, and then it would open up like that. You could put a little mechanism on it, just like a little thing that's glued on one half and then folds over here so that it holds that down so it doesn't fall open if you glue it down. So if you stick it in a pocket, it won't fall open. But I hope that you enjoyed today's project. I think that they're really quite fun. Another just fun thing to put in our journals. So thank you very much for stopping by. I really do appreciate it. And I hope that you all have an outstanding day. Bye-bye.